Welcome to Raising Healthy Families with Moms Meat and Kiwi. We're giving you the tools to enjoy the beauty and chaos of life with little ones in the healthiest way possible.
The 10th annual Moms Meet WOW Summit is heading to sunny SoCal November 10th through the 11th, 2023. Get your tickets now for 2 days of inspiration, education, and product sampling from your favorite Better For You brands. Visit momsmeet.link/summit23 to register now.
I'm your host, Maureen Frost, and today we have Amy Palangian of Yummy Toddler Food to help us conquer meal planning, batch cooking, and picky eating. Welcome, Amy. We are so happy to have you.
I'm so happy to be here.
Yes, I am a huge fan, and I will get into that. But for anyone who isn't aware, Amy is, like I said, the creator of Yummy Toddler Food, and she is a recipe developer, content creator, cookbook author, and mama to 3 kids. Her latest book, Dinner Time SOS, is available for pre-sale on Amazon and is coming out in August. So definitely make sure to check that out. And she has so many other great books too. So definitely take a look. You can go to her website, go to her Instagram, and find out all of her great information there. So I just want to share how much you have helped my family because I have 2 littles. I have a 4-year-old and a 2-year-old. And I found your page. I can't remember how, and I've been following you for a long time now, but your recipes, they've just helped my family because we deal with picky eating as most people do. And I just feel like your recipes are very simple and approachable for kids. And that's what I'm looking for. Like sometimes you see these recipes and there's so many steps and it doesn't look like something your kids would eat, but everything that you make is simple and it looks like, oh yeah, I really do think my kids will actually eat that. And my husband and I send your recipes back and forth to each other on Instagram. And I've made them. I've made a soup when my kids have been sick. I make your muffins. I've made a lot of things. And then I always save stuff that I want to make in the future. So definitely go check out the page right now. And I'm sure that everyone will agree with me. It's awesome. So before we begin, I was hoping that you could kind of share a little bit about your philosophy when it comes to feeding your own family and how you go about that.
So the philosophy that I have feeding my own family is kind of the same as the philosophy that I have in the recipes that I share. So I always want to make food that is appealing to the kids, but also that I want to eat because it's so much work to cook and it's expensive to buy ingredients. And I want everyone in our house to be able to enjoy most of the same food. I mean, like occasionally I will make something specific for the kids, but I want it to be like family first, which is a little bit different than you might find elsewhere. And I want families to I want to be able to cook when my kids are running around or when like my 4-year-old needs something. Like I want to be able to cook and stop and start and like have the methods be realistic for 5:30 on a Wednesday when everyone's kind of losing it but we all still need to eat. So it's like yummy, realistic, and like enjoyable for multiple ages. Like it seems like so simplistic to explain it that way because it sounds like, well, duh, like who wouldn't want that? But it's not. I think because I started the business when my kids were when my oldest was just in this toddler phase, I feel like my perspective on feeding a family has been so heavily influenced by that like new toddler mentality when they want your attention, they want you to know what they want. And you can't always understand them, but like we're gonna do our best. So it's like a little bit of all of that.
No, and I completely agree. Every recipe is attainable. Like I don't feel intimidated to make anything because you make it so simple with your ingredients. And there's a lot of the staple ingredients that you might have in your house and fresh ingredients. And my husband and I fall into that challenge right there where you're talking about you want something to feed the whole family for the most part. And we fall into, okay, we've finally figured out what we're going to eat this week. And then we make it and then we're like, oh, the 2-year-old won't eat it, or, oh, the 4-year-old won't eat it. And that's so challenging. So what you are doing is making meals that actually are, presentable and attainable and something that your kids are going to like, and you're going to like too. And it's very, I just feel like every time I see a recipe on your page, I'm like, "Oh, I can do that. I can make that recipe for my family," which is good. And, that's why so many people relate to what you're doing and love your food.
I just want to say also, part of the reason that I love recipes that everyone can enjoy is because if the 2-year-old doesn't want any of it, there is still someone else who will happily eat it, so that you're
Mhm.
not making food that's then eaten by no one,
Yeah.
because that's not helpful. Because toddler appetites are so hard to predict, and their preferences can be all over the place. And cooking specifically for them is like really like throwing darts sometimes.
Yeah.
So if you can like put yourself in the equation and then think about how you serve the food or what else is on the table, then it's like easier to sort of please everyone that way.
Mm, Yeah, absolutely. Something I'm sure it's a work in progress for families, but
Yeah.
that you do definitely make it easier. So we recently had Elise Resch, who's the co-author of Intuitive Eating, which I know you know about, on the podcast in our last season. And we talked all about intuitive eating for kids and also for parents. And she was just a wealth of information. But do you practice this with your family, and how do you guys go about it?
Yeah. So I consider my kids having been born with the ability to know when they're hungry and when they're full. There were no medical issues at play. And I want to do everything in my power to keep that intact. Because what often happens is that, like, those internal skills are broken by well meaning adults. And then when you're older, you have to
Hmm.
figure out how to listen to your body again. And I just want the kids to be able to just do it.
Yeah.
And so I don't make them clean their plates. I don't make them eat when they're not hungry. I trust them when they say that they are hungry. It's like defaulting to trusting them, even when it seems odd. Like, I think that the way that we expect kids to eat is often not based in reality. Like, they can be super hungry one day or one week and really not very hungry the following week. They can eat like 3 servings at breakfast and lunch and no dinner. Like, all of those things can seem very odd to an adult, but for a kid, or frankly for adults, that can be a really normal thing. And if we can just like let go of a little bit of our expectations, we can just follow their lead more. One thing that is really important to me is during meals is talking about other things, so that my focus is not on how much they're eating or whether they're eating or what they're eating. It's on me eating my own meal, because that is really important to my well-being. And then the kids get to be in charge of their own plates. And we talk about other things. And it is like, that is like the single favorite thing of mine about meals, is just the ability to sit there with our kids and talk about other stuff. It's so much more
Hmm.
interesting than talking about, I mean, I love talking about food, but like, we ask each other really silly questions. The kids tell jokes. Like, we'll just ask them, like, we have a groundhog who lives outside. And so we have this like endless battle or debate over what the groundhog's name is. Or we'll do like a circle story where like one of us will start a story and then like the next one will continue and it'll go around the circle. So I think just like letting go of the idea that we need to control everything our kids eat or the amount, and letting them be in charge of that. And that, saying that can feel like really scary for parents, because there's so much fear around food.
Hmm.
But there is a lot that we control. Like, we control the groceries, we control the meal plan to a large extent, we control like what's being prepped, what's available. So there are all of these ways that we can like have boundaries, and then within the boundaries the kids can have a lot of freedom.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So one of the things that Elise said to me was, like, if you're going to, you have to help yourself first with your
Yeah.
relationship with food. And that's the challenging part. Heal yourself, work on the issues you have, and then it'll just come easy once it comes to the kids. But like, we all probably do it. I know I did, like projecting your food issues and history and how you were raised onto your kids. So it really is like working on yourself first. And then it seems like you've been able to do that, and it has helped your family. I love the idea of focusing elsewhere at the dinner table. Like when we sit and engage with our kids, like they love it. They love, obviously your kids want attention all the time.
Yeah.
So you're giving them attention, you're asking them what their favorite part of the day is. And, then I think it takes the pressure off when my son is engaged in the conversation, like he's more likely to sit and not get up and run around like he does a million times. And then also, we're not bickering about eat that chicken nugget, like all this stuff. So that's a really good point to just kind of have the conversations and engage and connect with your kids at that point instead of focusing on every bite that goes in and out. So,
and one thing that can help, if you find yourself really worried about something specific, like name what it is you're worried about. Like, I'm worried that my son is not eating enough protein. And then like run it through the filter of like, is that actually something I need to be concerned about? Like, is he growing? Is he gaining weight? Is the pediatrician concerned? The answer to those things is no. You can like let it go a little bit. So I think sometimes we like worry sort of vaguely about things. And I think like if you can be specific about what it is and then ask yourself is it real? That could be like a small way that you can start sort of checking your own like reaction to the way that your kids are eating.
Yeah, absolutely. So now that we've kind of talked about this, do you deal with or have you dealt with picky eating in your house with your kids?
So I don't consider little kids who eat to be picky eaters. I think that we have put the label on kids who don't eat the way that we think they should. Yeah. I have kids who have preferences. I have kids who have opinions, and I have kids who have appetites that I cannot predict. I don't consider that to be picky. So I think it's like, I think it's easier for me to feed my kids because I'm not going into it viewing them as a problem to solve. I'm viewing them as part of our family who I am going to offer food to. So I think I am very well versed in like what's normal for little kids. And I think just knowing that has like freed me of that pressure. And I think because of my approach to dinner specifically, where we always have 1 to 2 foods on the table that are like in addition to whatever the main dish is. So like side dishes in quotes. It's not like actually sides. They're just like sliced cucumbers or sliced fruit or plain yogurt or like some other thing that enhances the meal but could be eaten separately by a kid. I think by always having those on the table, like it just sort of circumvent the issue of kids not eating because they always have something that they could eat if they're hungry, which just again like is another way to take the pressure off. And I don't personally care whether or not they eat everything that I put on the table. I don't really care if they choose just to eat those sides I mentioned. What I care is that they have something that they want to eat and that they have enough and that we're all sharing food and not and we're like being respectful.
No, I love that. That's such a better perspective to have of your kids. It takes the pressure off everyone at the table. So I appreciate that. That's really good. So I guess I don't know. Do you ever have to make multiple meals for your cook? Consider yourself like what do they call it? A short order cook, or always constantly doling out like this kid wants this or this wants that? How do you tackle that problem at home?
I don't, if I've made dinner, I never make a separate meal. This is where like those side dishes come into play. So those act as the other food if needed. There are times where like, I'm trying to think of an example. Like last night I had some like leftover pasta that was in tomato sauce. And it was Valentine's Day and my kids like love butter pasta. And so I made some butter pasta to go alongside of that so they could pick it. But it wasn't like I got up from the table and made something else. I don't want my kids to have the assumption that my involvement in the meal is like so unnecessary that I can just like leave the family table to go cook for them again. Like I want them to see us all on the same playing field, if that makes sense. And like the person who cooks gets to eat the food too. So that's never been something that we've done. And it's I just feel like I would lose my mind. And I know, like, for some families, it actually does work for them to make separate meals for the kids and then to eat after they go to bed. Like, that can be a completely sane
Mhm.
and great way to do it if it works for your family. I think some of the some of like the guilt or the pressure comes when we think that there's only one way to do it. So the way that we've figured it out for our family works best. Also, I don't like staying up late, so I prefer to eat at the same time as the kids. Yeah,
Oh, me
I
too.
know
I'm like a
exactly. I'm like,
5:30 girl
anytime
here.
we have,
Like,
we're like invited somewhere and like dinner's at 7, I'm like, that's crazy.
I know that's like halfway to bedtime. I know. But you're right. Like, and I have some friends whose partners work in the medical field and they don't get home till later, so they choose to wait and eat with them, and so that's
Yeah.
fine. That's what they do for their family. So totally whatever works for your family. But my family, I do struggle with that because everyone, I'm always the last to sit down and last to get to eat. Everyone's asking me to get up and get them other things, and
Yeah.
I lose it. Like, I'm like, I
Yeah.
get to eat too. Like, so that can definitely be a struggle. It's something we struggle with, and it's like definitely something to figure out and prioritize that everyone gets to sit down and eat. I've noticed that you bring most of your
Mm.
dishes to your table and serve that way. Can you talk about that a little bit? Do you feel like that helps
So that's
everything?
like for two reasons. The one is so that I don't have to get up. So if anyone wants additional food, it's just there and can be accessible. And then the other reason for that is so that the kids can see all of the food that's included in the meal and they can serve themselves. So when my oldest went to daycare when she was 2, I think she was 2, um, I would see pictures of like the kids like reaching in and scooping out their own food. And I was like, well, we should do that. Like if she does it at school, we should do that at home. So we started pretty early on, like letting them
Hmm.
serve themselves with help as needed. Like there is forever Parmesan cheese everywhere in our dining room. Like we have upholstered chairs, which was a terrible choice. But I think it helps the kids feel like they have some agency and some control over a meal, which they probably didn't have anything to do with cooking. So when you can like shift the power dynamics a little bit, it can help the meal be happier for the kids. So that just is sort of a thing that helps us.
Yeah. No, I never really thought about it that way, but it's definitely something to try. I think that's really smart because your kids always want to be in control and they can't always. So giving them the control when it doesn't matter or when it benefits them is really, really great. So we are going to take a quick break. And when we come back, we are going to talk about meal planning on a budget.
Life with kids is busy, so if you can't squeeze in that quick trip to the grocery store between mealtime and nap time, or you're too busy chauffeuring the kids to afternoon activities to pick up those last-minute dinner items, Instacart has you covered. You can get the products you love from your local store and even shop all your favorite stores in a single order. Plus, Instacart will hand-select your items based on your preferences, only picking the freshest produce. And you can get delivery to your door in as fast as 1 hour. Instacart even highlights deals in your area to help you save money. Get free delivery on your first order over $35. Follow the link in our show notes to let Instacart know we sent you and to help support our show. Instacart, the perfect shopping solution for busy families everywhere.
All right. Hi, everyone. We are back. And we are going to get into talking more about meal planning and budgeting. So I have some questions for Amy here, and I would really like to know what are some cost saving efforts that you that work for your family that you guys do to save money?
One is not having meat every day. So that is one way. I think the other big one is buying less fresh produce and more frozen. So, like splitting it in half so that I don't have as much pressure to use up perishable ingredients before they go bad. So, if something we don't get to, like broccoli that's on the meal plan, like something shifts, if it's frozen, it can just stay in the freezer longer. So, that's sort of like an upfront way to help reduce food waste, which is like one of the main causes of like we waste so much food that we're just basically like throwing away a portion of our food budget. So that's sort of, I try to use the food that we have before I'm buying additional. And I think that frozen thing, like, it's not any harder. It's often less expensive. The produce is often prepped for you. Like, it saves you time and money. And it is exactly the same food. It is not less nutritious. That is a very large misconception. It often might even taste better because it was frozen like right when the produce was ripe. So that would be one. I buy a lot of store brand,
Hmm.
like especially with pantry staples. And we go, like, I think I shop at like 3 different stores, and I sort of like have my list of the pantry items that are the least expensive in my head. This is like not something that anyone else in my family knows, but like I know which store has like the least expensive beans and nuts and flour.
Hmm.
So I try to stock up on those when I'm at sort of the right store.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And the frozen vegetables and fruit, that's a really, really good point too. And obviously food waste is a huge problem for us in our homes. It's a huge, huge problem like around the globe, and something that contributes to climate change. So any way that you can use what you have, and use it up, and instead of throwing out half of a box of or a little container of salad, which happens way too often in my house. That's great. So using frozen fruit and veggies is awesome. And plus, like, one of the things, my kids love fruit so much, and some of the fruit isn't available in the winter that they love, but you can buy frozen mango and frozen and things like that, and still they can still have those tastes in the winter, which I think is
Mhm.
awesome.
I think the other thing that definitely helps me with this is that like the majority of the food I'm buying is food that I know my family likes. I'm
Hmm.
not like going crazy with like new things every week, um, which, like, it's okay to lean on like the staples that your family actually will eat. So
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. You don't have to go above and beyond and be gourmet. Like,
yeah,
and that's what I love about your page, because it's you're back to basics, but everything looks so good. So it's not like basic is not boring. It's just that you're eating simple foods that
right.
everyone will like, which is great. Okay. So how do you meal plan for your family?
So I often say that I don't cook like a normal person. I mean, I don't, because this is like I do this for work. So
Yeah.
but I do try on Sundays usually to like map out what we're eating. And we very much have categories for each night of the week. So like Monday is usually a pasta, Tuesday is usually quesadillas or tacos or something involving beans and tortillas.
Hmm.
And then there's usually like a sandwich night, and I've been making a lot of big Caesar salads lately. So like I start with like this general category, so then I can like be flexible within that. So that's how I like roughly plan out the week. And then I try to photograph or do videos of recipes like on a day that my family could eat them. Like, it's a lot of logistical. There's like an extra layer that I don't wish upon
Right.
anyone. Like, I just like every Wednesday morning I have a photographer who comes, and so today we shot 5 things, and I just looked at my fridge and I was like, I'm gonna have to put like half of it in the freezer because
In the freezer. Yeah.
yeah, like, I mean, if you follow my Instagram or on TikTok, this has gone like a little bit crazy. Like my freezer stash, where I don't know what it is about TikTok, but like they love freezer tips. Like,
Yeah.
um, so, but the thing is like I freeze a ton of stuff, but I only freeze food that I know we will eat. Like, I do not use my freezer as a place where like hope goes to die. Like, I will not put something in there that I'm like, well, maybe.
Yeah.
I only use it if I'm like, we will for sure eat this. I will like tuck it away for next week. So I'm always doing that with like pancakes or waffles or cake, or we almost never have extra muffins, but that would be like an easy thing to freeze. But like if I'm cooking rice or I'm cooking beans, like from dry beans, I always
Hmm.
cook 2 or 3 times as much. Or if I'm making vegetable stock, like I cook extra and then put it in the freezer because those are things I know we will use.
Yeah, you have a lot of foresight, more than I do, but I guess it's the planning, putting the effort into the planning stage of it is the
And
challenging
part of
part.
it is like, if I know I'm gonna be doing something like cooking rice or making beans, like I don't, I mean, I sometimes will like double a batch of meatballs or chicken nuggets or something, but like those are so much more labor intensive that that does actually take twice as long to make. So like I
Mhm.
have to really like convince myself that that's worth it. But the like more like single ingredient staple things that are just like simmering on the stove or in the Instant Pot, like I will double those in a heartbeat.
Yeah, that's a good point. I never thought of it that way. But now that you've said it, do you have other freezer tips for us? Because I bet your freezer is, and like I would be envious of it if I saw how
It's
much
a
good food you
no,
have in
it's a
it.
mess. It's I keep getting asked like, how do you work in this? And I'm like, I don't. I have like the like pull out freezer in my kitchen, and
Yeah.
there's like no way to keep it. Like all the smoothie stuff is in one spot, and then the rest is just sort of like piles. I don't know.
Mhm.
Um, but I do keep so whenever I buy baby spinach, we almost never use the whole bag, so I stick that in the freezer because
Mhm.
that means it won't go bad, and I can add it to like soups or pasta sauces or make spinach pesto or add it to grilled cheese. Like it's super versatile.
Mhm.
I always have ginger in the freezer, like a fresh knob of ginger that I put in a bag and stick in the freezer because you can grate it with the peel on right into a recipe
Mhm.
from frozen, and then you can just refreeze it and it never goes bad. We like there's always like a running bag of bananas and apples. So the bananas we usually use for smoothies, and then the apples I try to save up until I have like enough to make like sautéed apples, which is sort of like pie filling, which are my favorite way to eat apples. So I'm always
I
looking
know,
for
I've
like
seen your videos.
leftover apple slices.
They look so good. Oh my
Yeah, they're the
gosh.
best. They are the best.
And I feel like you use really good containers. What containers do you use to store everything?
So I have like a basic set of like Rubbermaid containers, and then I was sent this like giant set of vacuum seal containers from Zwillig, Zwilling.
Okay.
And I was at first like, oh, this is like so over the top. I will never use this. It is like my favorite thing. Their containers are so they make glass containers and they make plastic, and then there's like a I don't like a wand, I guess you would call it, that sucks all the air out. And
Oh.
so it helps keep food fresh longer. And just
Mhm.
the containers are like incredibly nice. I think I've been using them for 6 months and there's like no wear and tear on them at
Mhm.
all. So those are really nice. And then I have like a, I don't know, like 4 stasher bags, which are silicone reusable bags that I use a
Yeah.
lot. And like if you look at my videos, like it is the same ones. Like I'm just using the same ones. I do not have like 20 of them because they are very expensive. I
Yes,
have
they are.
like
Yeah.
4. um, so those are and then I have like plastic freezer bags.
Yeah. Yeah. It just seems like you have everything figured out when you're doing your videos. But um
It is also my job.
I
So
know, I know. I've seen you. I know you say that. I'm like, all right, that makes me feel a little bit better because I love that I think it's amazing. Now you started doing recipe development for magazines, and that's kind of how you moved into this, right?
so I started out as a magazine editor. So I was like writing and doing um, like market work for food products. Like I would go to trade shows and see what new food products were out. I would like call in products to prop like party stories. And
Mhm.
then I was like editing like feature stories on a whole range of stuff. I did a lot of crafting stories. And then I'm like, a couple jobs, like all the jobs kept going away. So there was a point at which I lost a job and was put into another job that I had like no say in.
Mhm.
But I wound up being put into the job of recipe editor. And so for a year, I worked with Better Homes and Gardens, like very intensively on their single topic food magazines that you see at like the checkout. So it's like slow cooker or Thanksgiving recipes. And so for like a year, I just edited recipes, I developed recipes, and I worked with the test kitchen there.
Mhm.
And I like, it was like going to recipe development school. like I had like done recipe development before, but I didn't really know how to like test a recipe or um, just like how to tweak things. Like it was a really, I never would have picked that job for myself, but it became like integral to everything that came after. So
I love that. Yes. So you kind of fell into it, but now it's moved you down this like path that's so
yeah.
amazing. And so now that we're kind of jumping into, how you make your recipes, are there any like musts that you try to incorporate in your recipes nutrition wise, or any guidelines that you follow?
Um, Not really. So it really depends on the recipe and it sort of depends on the mix. So this niche that I'm in with like baby and toddler specific food um, is perhaps one of the most like contentious. Like it's people are very opinionated about
Mm-hmm.
the types of ingredients that belong in these types of recipes for little kids. I am also very aware of food budgets, and I am
Mm-hmm.
aware of food needing to taste good for little kids to want to eat it. So you might find things like sugar in my recipes that you might not see other places. And that is purely because maple syrup costs a fortune and not everyone will always have it.
Yeah.
Also, some baked goods just work better with a little bit of sugar. But the thing that I do is I try to make it like use as little added sweetener as I can and still have the adults in the family want to eat the food in case the kid doesn't. I try to use whole grains, but I am not like religiously tied to them. I do baked goods with all purpose flour because sometimes it works better. It is the flour that the majority of people have. This is where like accessibility really, like you just lose so many potential people who can cook a recipe if you only use very expensive ingredients.
Mm-hmm.
And also I think I just take a very different look at health than most people. And I look at what we eat over like a whole week.
Yeah.
I do not think that every bite of food has to be like quote unquote the most nutritious. I think our health is made up of so many factors and what we eat is just one of them. And the anxiety that we feel around food is certainly not helping matters. So um like I use ketchup. Like it's like basic things where like most every house has ketchup. You see
Yeah.
ketchup being used with a child dipping vegetables into it and then like suddenly people have a lot of opinions about it, but I am very deliberate in trying to show things that
It's
sometimes are
realistic.
controversial.
Honestly, it's
Yeah, yeah.
realistic because
Like
my kids eat ketchup all the time.
I know.
And if it helps them eat that dinner, then sure, ketchup. Like,
Right.
and what I do, like, you're right. Like, I can usually make the recipes that I find on your page with everything that I already have in my house, all the staples that you have. Like maybe here and there I'll run out and grab something, but it's very easy, and that we need easy. We're
Yeah.
parents. Everything's
Yeah.
hard because we're doing so many different things. We need easy. So I love that.
I do use a lot of yogurt in recipes, which is like
Yes. And you have like brought me to the yogurt side. I have some of your yogurt muffins in my freezer. I love, they're so good. Oh my
I know they
gosh.
really are good.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. That's something like I only really started baking for my kids when my daughter has a peanut allergy, and we thought she had an egg allergy, so she had to avoid a lot of things. So I was always like, okay, I got to make them from scratch now. Let me figure it out. That's when I started baking more. But like I love it now. I love batch making muffins and things like that for my kids because that's what they want to eat and it makes them excited in the morning. And if you can do them with yogurt and they get a little extra protein, like yay.
Right. Yeah,
So
exactly.
it's good. So how can parents, I know we talked about this, but how can parents incorporate more veggies into their kids' food? I sometimes, sometimes my kids will eat tons of salad or they'll love something, but sometimes they don't. So how can we help our kids kind of become more comfortable with vegetables, I guess?
I think like make sure they taste good to you. So like someone recently commented on something and she was like, I made a recipe like this for my daughter and she spit it out. And I was like, did you taste it? Because if you didn't taste it, you don't know, like, so like taste the food. Make sure it
Mhm.
tastes good to you, which is not a guarantee that your child will like it, but at least you know that there's not like a very obvious flavor problem because
Right.
ingredients vary. So, and especially vegetables, like depending on where they came from, depending on how you cook them, like a carrot could be super sweet or super bland. Like you don't know until you take a bite. So that is one thing. And then I serve them all kinds of ways. Like I put them in things, I serve them raw, we have them cooked. Like serve vegetables to your kid as if you're making them for yourself. Like over the course of 2 weeks or a month, just like vary them, like include your favorites in there and then try something new. My kids went on like a raw carrots kick last year, which started when I bought a bag of rainbow carrots,
Oh.
like the ones that they're orange, yellow, and purple. And so
Mhm.
when you bite into a purple carrot, the inside of it is orange. It's like a very cool color. And so they were all very interested in that. And so then we went through like all of the carrots and then they didn't want carrots anymore. Like think like those phases are sort of normal. So just like I think don't worry so much about always making their favorites
Mhm.
or when they say no to something.
Mhm.
Like assume that they have always have the ability to change their minds and that they always have the ability to decide that they like something again
Mhm.
because if you can remember that that's normal, like you can just freak out a whole lot less when they say no to their favorite thing. Um,
Mhm.
Someone just sent me a message this morning was like, my son finally tried broccoli. How many times a week should I make it for him so that he continues to love it? And I was like, I mean, if you like, don't make a schedule. Like the
Yeah.
fastest way to like ruin this for everyone is to like format it. Like, just like
Yeah.
I mean, just I was like, how many times would you like to have broccoli during the week? Like for me, it's like one or two. So that's
Yeah,
what we
right?
do.
And then you get
Um,
sick of it if you eat it too much.
yeah,
So you have
yeah,
to, because we had like my daughter was like sweet potatoes all that when she was first starting to eat sweet potatoes, and then it was like,
yeah.
no more.
We're done. We're
And
done.
then you give up for like a month, and then then maybe they'll like it again. But
Yeah,
you have to. They go through the same things that we go through. Like, you get tired of foods and you get sick
right.
of them, and you want to try something else. So
I
remembering their
mean,
little people too.
yeah. A few other things that can help is putting out, like, taking the vegetables. If if they're not eating a lot of vegetables and they're eating a lot of fruit, chances are all of the vitamins and minerals are being covered because they
Mhm.
have very similar things. But if you are concerned about it, you can put some vegetables like on the counter while you're making dinner or like take it off of the dinner table where there might be more sort of pressure, overt or not, and just like have it there. Like if I have sliced cucumbers or bell peppers or cherry tomatoes, like depending on the kid, if I just put that on the counter while I'm making dinner, it will be eaten.
Mhm.
There's like something about um, removing it from dinner that can help. The other thing is like, so my son is 4 and he has maybe eaten broccoli like I could count on one hand. Like
Mhm.
he's been like very slow to all vegetables besides carrots. So at some point over the summer, I don't even remember why I made some roasted frozen broccoli. I think I was just like trying it to see if it worked. Wasn't
Mhm.
dinner time. It was just he and I pulled it out of the air fryer and I like offered it. I offered for him to feed me. Uh, Again, like I don't know why. We was just like hanging out. I don't know. It was
Mhm.
like killing time, and so he really liked that. And then what happens is that he copied me. So he would feed me, and then he wanted me to feed him. So then he was like, now he likes broccoli, but only when it's from the black thing, which is the air fryer.
Yeah.
um, so like just if you can have moments when you're like a little bit more playful and it's a little bit less scripted, you can also like give them a random utensil. Like if my son's having a hard time at dinner, I will often hand him a pair of like tiny little tongs, or I will
I
give
love
him
that.
like a serving fork.
Yeah.
And so like something that is like will like sort of help their brain focus a little and be like, what is this? And then they engage with the food, trying to use it. And not every kid will then eat the food, but that has been like a pretty good like back pocket option for when a meal is not going well.
Yeah, those are really good tips for sure. I want to talk about the snack shelf that you have at your house, and if you could share a little bit about what you do and how that works, because I think snacking is an issue that many parents deal with because our kids sometimes want to snack all day or whatnot. So I want to hear how you do it because it seems like it's working out well for you guys.
Yeah. So we have had a shelf with snacks for about 3 years. And it is something that started when we were all home together during the pandemic, and has just become like our normal. And it is not something that I give a whole lot of thought to, but when I like shared a picture of it, there were a lot, and I was like, oh, I guess this is not common.
Yeah.
So it is like literally a shelf that is kid height that has snacks. So the goal of it is that my girls, who are both in elementary school, have things that they can grab to take with them to school for snack, or if they have an after school activity, that they can grab something and take it with them. And it is also for like weekend snacks. It is not like there's no fresh fruit there because it's in the pantry. Like we always have fresh fruit and cheese sticks and things elsewhere. But this is something that I have like handed over to them. So we have a pretty specific snack time. And the kids, at least my oldest, who can tell time, knows when it is, or it's like after an activity on the weekend. And they can go and help themselves to a snack or two. And then I will like sometimes offer to hand them a banana or cut up an apple or something to go with it. But I don't worry so much about whether their snack is balanced because there's not a ton of time between each time that we eat. Like they tend to have snacks at like 4 and then we eat dinner at 5:30. So that's not like the chances of a kid like having a complete meltdown because they're starving in 90 minutes, at least with my kids, is fairly low. So like sometimes the older girls will just have popcorn, or sometimes like my son at that time of the day often is not hungry and will just eat like a tiny piece of dried mango. Like it's not, I have really let go of controlling that. And I think, and they don't go in there when it's not snack time. They're not grabbing snacks all day. And I think that's because they know that that's there for them at snack time and they have access to it. And they feel freedom within that time to pick the thing that they want. And I know that that sounds counterintuitive, but a lot of the times when kids are wanting snacks all the time, it's often a reaction to feeling like they're not allowed to have it. And often if a kid is like really into a certain thing, they will be out of that certain thing like fairly soon. Like for us, it's always like if I ever buy like the double box of Z bars, everyone will decide that they don't like them anymore.
Yeah.
So I'm like, I will only ever buy the box with 6 because so I think like if you're having the issue that the kids are wanting snacks all day, I would sort of look at like how you're treating snacks. I don't look at that the food that I have on the shelf as like any better or worse than the food we eat at other meals. So I don't care if they eat some of it.
Right.
Like if you're buying snacks and you don't actually want your kids to eat them, that's like a very tricky situation to put yourself in.
Right.
Because then you're always feeling like you have to like manage it.
Yeah. I have it. My 2-year-old wakes up in the morning and asks for snacks. So that's a challenge that we have.
One thing that can help with younger kids is to not separate out quote unquote snack food for separate eating times. Like put those foods in all of the meals, and put other foods in all of the meals also. So have like each meal be like a mini meal. So like breakfast could have like a snack bar and scrambled eggs and a banana, and snack could have like hummus and tomatoes. Like it doesn't, I think the the separating out of the snacks for like specific times makes them very, very appealing to
Yeah.
1 and 2 year olds, and can make that age like, I think that's when it becomes like I only get this thing at this specific time. And so I'm going to like wait for it.
Yeah.
So making it like a little bit more available but spread out can sometimes lessen that a little.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Yeah, we know, things aren't necessarily working the way they're going. So we're trying alternate routes with her, but that's a really good something to try to incorporate into her day. As we wrap up here, do you have any last advice for our listeners?
I think like most parents could benefit from like taking a big deep breath
Yes.
and remembering to really try not to compare yourself to what you see on social media. I think that has really, especially in the past 2 years, made feeding our families feel so much harder because we're constantly seeing what other people do, which can be
Mhm.
really helpful, but also can make us feel like we're failing when we're not. So I think just like remember that you're doing a really great job, even if you're not doing it the same as other people that you're seeing.
Mhm.
And just like give yourself a little bit of grace with that.
Yes, absolutely. In all areas. No, I
Yes.
completely
Yeah.
agree. Well, thank you so much for joining us. This has been an amazing conversation. I'm so happy that we got to have you on. And for everyone listening, be sure to check out yummytylerfood.com. Follow Amy at yummytylerfood on Instagram, pre-order dinner time SOS, and just, let us know if you're out there trying her recipes and share your pictures. And I'm sure that you will enjoy it as I have. So thank you, Amy. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
And thank you all for joining us. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button to make sure you don't miss the latest podcast episodes. Thanks all.
This episode is brought to you by Ocho Candy. Ocho Candy makes high-quality, organic, and fair trade chocolate candy. Their name, Ocho, stands for organic chocolate. Born in West Oakland, Ocho shares the Bay Area's commitment to responsible sourcing and high product quality. When you choose Ocho, you're voting with your dollar, supporting income sustainability, worker empowerment, community development, and environmental stewardship. Responsible sourcing has never been so tasty. Head to momsmeat.com to see what moms had to say about Ocho Candy.